Hey triathletes, so there are two factors that will significantly impact your threshold and the power that you're able to ride at for Ironman or a half Ironman. So I'd like to take a minute and just jump into a case study showing you how these two factors will significantly impact your threshold. So let's dive in. So the two factors that impact your threshold are your VO2 max, your maximum aerobic power, as well as your VLA max, your maximum glycolytic power. Most people have heard of VO2 max and they know that a high VO2 max is beneficial, but VLA max is not as commonly known, but it's an equally significant factor in determining your threshold. So I'm going to share with you how this athlete improved their threshold without elevating their VO2 max. It was simply a reduction in their VLA max. And I want to walk you through how that happened, how it works, and how we achieve that. So this particular athlete, their anaerobic threshold occurred at 242 watts. And when we reduced this athlete's VLA max, their threshold jumped up to 262 watts. And so if we take a look at both VO2 max and VLA max, one of the things that we consider when somebody is racing Ironman or half Ironman distance races, we don't want their glycolytic power to be too strong. Because while this does represent a little bit of explosiveness and power potential, it comes at a cost, and that cost is efficiency. And so when we're looking at an athlete's profile, we're evaluating, okay, where is their VO2 max at? Where is their VLA max at? And will we get an improvement if we reduce the VLA max, or do we have to target improving the VO2 max? And sometimes it's a combination of the two, but these are the two dials that we are adjusting when we're looking at improving an athlete's threshold, not only threshold, but the power that they're able to sustain for an Ironman or a half Ironman. So if we take a look here at 242 watts, this athlete is using approximately 75% of their VO2 max. Our goal, our standard is always to get an athlete between 80 and 85% of their VO2 max. And in this particular case, it jumped out at us that this athlete's VO2 max was in a really good spot. Yes, it could be improved, but that was not our focus. Our focus was reducing their VLA max. We needed to reduce their glycolytic power, because when we did that, we knew that when we would do that, we would see a jump not only in their anaerobic threshold, but also in their fat max and their carb max. Let's just compare these here. So if we look at, as I mentioned, their VO2 max, their threshold occurred at 75% of their VO2 max. Their fat max was at 157 watts and their carb max was at 184 watts. After we reduced the VLA max down to 0.32, so you'll notice here that the VO2 max didn't go up. Actually, it dropped just a tad bit, but it didn't go up. It was relatively unchanged. But look at what happened to their threshold. So their anaerobic threshold jumped up to 262 watts, and now they're using 84% of their VO2 max. Their fat max also jumped up to 178 watts, and their carb max jumped up as well. So the result here is that this athlete going into race day is going to be able to ride at a significantly higher power than they were able to ride at previously. And this is without a change in VO2 max. So the question is, how did we achieve this? What allows us to reduce an athlete's glycolytic capacity? Well, it's a combination of things. Obviously, consistent training, but one of the factors is we need to be able to ride at a high enough intensity to stimulate these glycolytic fibers to be more oxidative in nature, help them become a little bit more aerobic. And so this means not just a bunch of riding in zone 2. Zone 2 is important, but that's not the recipe for reducing the glycolytic power. We actually have to have high enough intensity to stimulate these muscle fibers to be trained to be a little bit more aerobic in nature. And so how does this look from a training standpoint? It comes out in the form of big gear intervals, typically anywhere from, depending on the athlete, 85 to 95% of their threshold. And that really helps us to bring down an athlete's glycolytic power. So if we take this athlete's current situation, they're now at 84% of their VO2 max. And once we reach about 85% of VO2 max, then we start shifting our focus to, okay, now we can really focus on elevating that VO2 max. So when we look at both VO2 max and VLA max, these, where an athlete stands, will help us to determine what we need to go after. Do we need to raise their VO2 max, or do we simply need to bring down their VLA max? And these decisions, these factors contribute to the decisions we make with training, and this is how athletes get results. And this is how we we are able to make significant gains. If we just simply looked at VO2 max, it would be clear that, okay, this athlete didn't gain in VO2 max, but in reality, they had a huge improvement in efficiency. And this translates to more power on race day, which is the end goal of our training. We want to be able to ride with more power and have it impact us less when we get to the run. So anyway, I wanted to share this with you, something to consider as you consider your training and what you need to target.